Good morning, and to our friends joining us abroad, good evening. I am your host, Christy Idlekeeper. Welcome to Mirage Talks. For today's talk, our hope is to enlighten and clarify. Since the October 7th attacks, there has been a lot of misinformation in the media, and today we hope to share perspective on Israel's security fence. We welcome Colonel Reserve, just returning home from the Army, and CEO at Yasmat, Dr. Dani Tirza. Dani, welcome. Let's get started.
Well, good evening. I'll share the 1 minute. It will do. Okay, it works.
I would just put presentation mode.
Okay, so hello and welcome. My name is Dani Tirza, and I'm a retired colonel from the Israeli Army. I've served in the Army for 30 years. Most of this time I was commander in combat units, most of the time at the paratroopers. But in the end of 1993, I was called to be the head of Rainbow Operation Administration. Well, I didn't know what it is, so I came to the chief of staff and asked him, what you want me to do? And he said to me, well, there is something going on there in Oslo between the Israelis and the Palestinians. I want you to be there. Take all the security concerns from the ground and be part of the Israeli delegation. So, in a very short period, I've established a strategic planning bench at the central command of the IDF, and I took part in all the negotiations with the Palestinians from 1994 till 2007. In 2007, I've retired from the Army and the Ministry of Defense. I finished my PhD, and then I was called back to Prime Minister office when we had the Annapolis process negotiations in 2008, 2009. Then I retired from all of it. Today I'm a free man. I run my own company. But still, when the government needs me, and from the first week of the war, I'm back in the army, but wherever the government needs me, they know how to call me. And even when the American administration made the peace plan of President Trump, what they call the deal of the century, they called me to be the expert of territorial issues and mapping. So in this duty, I had to do two things. On one hand, I had to be there in the negotiations, representing the security concerns from the ground. But on the other hand, I had to prepare the ground for the future peace that nobody knew how it will be, like changing all the network of the roads in the West Bank, because till that time, all the main roads were crossing the Palestinian towns. Now we had to construct new roads that will take the Israelis to the houses without entering Palestinian urban areas. I had to relocate all the military camps from the Palestinian towns to the open space. I had to build all the homeland security infrastructure, and even to change the set of minds of the Israeli soldiers to cooperate with the Palestinian police against the Palestinian terror. So it was a very interesting job, and I did it for 14 years. In this duty, I had to meet a lot of times with Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian leader. Well, the first meetings were very hard for me because I knew how bloody his hands were. We chased him all over the area and in Lebanon too. Now I had to meet with him, shake his hand. You know, the Palestinians, when they meet each other man to man, they used to kiss each other. I came with straight hand, no kissing, but working together. And really, I felt when people says that you make peace with your enemies, not with your friends. Well, Yasser Arafat used to call me Abu Kharita. Abu in Arabic is father, Kharita is map. So Abu Kharita is the father of maps because I was the mapper and the territorial expert in all those negotiations. But really, it's a joke because there is another word in Arabic that we are using it a lot in Hebrew too, Kharta. Kharita is map, but Kharta is bullshit. Sorry for the word. So today I'll try to share with you some of the dilemmas that I had to face when I got the mission from the Israeli government to design and build a security fence. But that was in 2002. I cannot start the story of the security fence in 2002 because we have to recognize that there are two different narratives about the past. But before I'll start with that, I just want to put some maps. As I said, I'm Abu Harita. So as you know, Israel is a very small country. If you put the map of Israel on the map of the United States, it's almost 400 times. We are just at the size of New Jersey. All Israel, the size of New Jersey. We're making a lot of noise, but really we are very, very small. If we are putting the map, the Middle East, you can see all the yellow Arab countries, and in the middle of the Arab world, you can see a small knife. That's Israel, a knife in the heart of the Arab world. And therefore, we are not welcome in that area. If we are looking, zooming in, you can see Israel, but inside Israel, we can see in the north, the Golan Heights, we can see the West Bank.
Are you sharing some?
See Gaza Strip in the west, and you can see the West Bank in the east, just Israel between Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt. We have a national story that we really, really believe that this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The Palestinians have their own narrative. Well, our national story is very simple. We, the Jews, are the people that God promised us this land. He didn't promise it to any Arab. There were no Arabs that time at that land. We were living here. We were thrown away by force from our land 2,000 years ago, and now we came back to rebuild our nation on our land. We call it that time the people without land are coming back to the land without people, because really in the end of the 19th century, there were no many Arabs in that land too. Of course, there were a lot more Arabs than Jews here, but we thought that we are going to establish here a democratic state. In every democratic state, there's some minorities. So we thought that we will bring here the Jews from all over the world, and the Arabs will be an equal minority inside Israel. That's what we thought, but as you know, the Arabs didn't like that idea at all. So in 1948, when the British mandate went away and Israel was established here, 5 Arab countries came in with their armies trying to erase Israel from the map. It was a very tough war. We lost 1% of our population at that war, but thanks God, we succeeded and we won that war. In 1967, again, Egypt, Syria, and Jordan tried to erase Israel, and thanks God, in 6 days, we succeeded and we won that war, and we occupied the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and Sinai Desert. But we didn't annex these lands to Israel. We let it to the future, though we really believe that there will come a day and we can have peace agreement with our neighbors and live here normally in this wild neighborhood of the Middle East. Well, this is our national story, very simple one. But the Palestinians have another narrative. According to the Palestinians, the Jews are only a religion. It's not a nation. And therefore, the Jews have no right for their own state, because there is no state for any religion around the globe. Even the Vatican is not the state of the Christians, it's the state of the administration of the Pope. So as they see, the Jews that were spread along the world had a lot of money. So they let money to the Turkish Sultan and to the German Empire that they will let them build here a colony. And they are looking above Israel as part of the colonialism of the 19th century. Well, as the colonialism is gone all over the world, most of the Arabs believe that Israel will vanish from the area too. It will take a time, But in Arabic, there is a word sabr. Sabr means patience, but a lot of patience. So they say, we have sabr. The conditions here are too tough. The Jews are too spoiled. It will take a time and the Jews will go away. But a lot of other Arabs says, let's help them go away. So according to the Palestinians, the Jews came here from all over the world, trying to take the Palestinian properties, the Palestinian lands. And in 1948, when the British mandate went away, the Jews tried to get rid from the Arabs that were living here. And that's what started the refugees problem. In 1967, according to the Palestinians, Israel tried to enlarge a border. So Israel occupied the West Bank, the Golan Heights, and Sinai Desert. And as they are living under the illegal occupation of Israel, they have in their eyes all the rights to resist that occupation in any way. So what we call terror attacks, they call it freedom fight. So as we have different narratives, and if you have a different narrative, you cannot compromise because narrative is your belief. And therefore we had here 100 years of armed conflict between the sides. That was till 1993. In 1993, something new came in. There was some unofficial Israel and some unofficial Palestinians that sat together in Oslo, Norway. And they said to each other, we recognize that you have a different narrative about the past, but let's see if we can find a way for the future, if we can find a way to live here together, to raise children here together. And when they sat together, they found that there is a way. And that's what started the Oslo peace process. Well, we call it that time the tunnel to peace. There is the great light of the peace in the end, but you have to cross the darkness of the process to get there. As you probably know, in this process, a lot of people lost their life. A lot of blood was spilled. But I don't want to get to the details. I want to jump to summer 2000. In summer 2000, we were in Camp David, Maryland, a peace submission that President Clinton held there. We were 16 Israelis headed by our prime minister at that time, Ehud Barak. The Palestinians, there were 16 headed by their leader, Yasser Arafat. And there was a big American delegation headed by President Clinton. Just imagine that President Clinton left his office for 2 weeks and he was with us there on the mountain. So he really believed that we are going to get out from this peace mission with an agreement in our hands. Well, we, the technical staff, worked in a very good environment. We worked on the wording, worked on the mapping. Of course, there were some gaps between the sides, but that's part of negotiation. That was still the last evening. At the last evening, President Clinton held a nice dinner. He stand and said nice words about peace. And then Prime Minister Ehud Barak stand and said to Yasser Arafat, I'm willing to give you almost everything. When he said almost everything that time, he talked about 94% of the West Bank, all Gaza Strip, large areas inside Jerusalem, and even the Temple Mount. But he said to Yasser Arafat, I need one thing from you, that you will sign that this agreement is the end of the conflict between our two people. Otherwise, I cannot give you anything, because if I give you what I can today, and tomorrow you'll come with new claims, what I'll do tomorrow? Well, Yasser Arafat was very angry. He left the dinner, he went to his cabin. 3 hours later, he came to President Clinton, and he said to President Clinton, I'm the leader of the Palestinian people. I am not the leader of the great Arab nation. And therefore, I cannot sign that this agreement is the end of the conflict. And everything crashed down at that moment. As you know, 2000 was the year that everyone expected that something new will happen, especially here in the Holy Land. We expected to have here more than 3 million pilgrims and tourists. The economical level was very high. Relations between Jews and Arabs were very good. We thought that peace is just behind the corner. But as the expectations were so high, the disappointment was just the same. It was the day before Rosh Hashanah, and the head of the opposition of Israel that time, Ariel Sharon, wanted to show everyone that we are not giving up the Temple Mount. So he just wanted to visit there. According to the status quo, Jews are allowed to visit the Temple Mount. They are not allowed to pray there, but they are allowed to visit there. So he just visited the Temple Mount, and the Palestinians use it as a trigger to start a terror attack that was prepared long time before that. And in one day, all the life in Israel had been changed. Well, first the Palestinians were shooting from their areas toward Jewish neighborhoods in Jerusalem. Then they were sending terrorists, first with Molotov cocktail bottles, hand grenades, shooting in the streets, putting bombs wherever they can, the explosive cars, and in the end, suicide bombers. Well, of course, all these pilgrims and tourists canceled the tour to Israel. But imagine what happened to the Israelis. Well, I can tell you about myself. I was afraid to send my daughter to a school in Jerusalem after 17 public buses were blown up by terrorists. Who will be the crazy man to visit the famous Machne Yehuda market of Jerusalem after 15 terror attacks there? Jaffa Street of Jerusalem, about 1 mile long, and we had the 21 terror attacks. The big discotheque in Tel Aviv, 1 suicide bomber, 18 youngers were murdered, and 150 were wounded. All over the country, just name a place, and there was a terror attack. The people in Israel, they asked the government, separate us from them. We don't want to see them anymore. Don't let them come to Israel for any reason. But the government of Israel didn't want to construct any barrier on the ground. Not in 2000, not in 2001, and even not in 2002. Well, why? As you know, in Israel, everything comes back to the political field. There were some Israelis that said that the only fence should be along the Jordan River. Other people said, no, put the fence exactly on the green line. Well, what is the green line? The green line wasn't some holy line or some historical line or some international line, not even a physical line. It was just a temporary ceasefire line between Jordan Kingdom and Israel from the end of the 48 war till 67. Well, Jordan Kingdom is not here anymore. The line doesn't exist on the ground anymore. But this is the only political line that defines the West Bank. So there were a lot of people that said, build the fence exactly on the green line. But this line was a very bad line on security eyes because it runs down the valleys. On security eyes, you always want to be in dominant areas. You want to see who is coming to you. You want to be sure that no one will shoot you from above. So really, it was a very bad line. Other people said, no, take the line inside Israel and exclude from Israel as many Israeli Arabs. If these Israeli Arabs are pro-Palestinian, okay, let them live on the Palestinian side. Other people said, no, take the line inside the West Bank and include as many Israeli settlers as you can. And the government of Israel, that was a united party government at that time, didn't want to get inside that argument, and therefore they didn't construct any barrier on the ground. So what the government did, we had so many terror attacks here. Well, first the government sent us, the army, to block all the roads from the West Bank to Israel. So in 48 hours, we cut all the roads from the West Bank to Israel. We put 48 checkpoints on the main roads, and we were checking every car that came from the West Bank to Israel. But it didn't help because it was like a gate in the desert. We were checking only those who came to us. It was very easy to bypass the checkpoints by foot. So then the government sent us to catch the terrorist leaders. Well, that's a mission that army loves to do. Because if you get the precise information, the precise indication about some terrorist, and you're getting very quietly to his house or to his headquarters or to his shelter, and you get the right man in the right time and you bring him to court in Israel. So in 2 weeks, we brought 100 leaders of the Palestinian terror organizations to Israel. But it didn't help because, you know, terror organization, you take the head of it, the next morning they're too new. So then the government sent us to find out where the laboratories, where they make those explosives. So we went inside the Palestinian towns, we blew up more than 300 laboratories. But it didn't help because, you know, you can make explosives even in your own kitchen. It's very dangerous to do it, don't try, but you can. So then the government sent a lot of soldiers and a lot of policemen to the streets to protect the public from the Palestinian terror. But that made the opposite, because if you're sitting inside your house, you're watching out your window, and you see soldiers patrolling near your house, you're going out to the street, there are soldiers there. You're going to the bus station, there are soldiers there. You're going on the bus, there are soldiers there. You're going to the mall, there are soldiers there. Wherever you go, soldiers, policemen, soldiers. So people became very nervous. That was till March 2002. In March 2002, in 1 month, we lost 128 people that were murdered by terror attacks. And people said to the government, enough is enough. We cannot live with such level of terror. Do something, build something. And the government took the first decision to let the army design and build a security fence. And that was the moment when I got the mission to be the head of this project. The government didn't want to build it. The government didn't want to get inside the details of the road of the fence. So I was the bad guy that had to walk on the ground with my staff, define the right line of the fence, and build it as fast as I can. Well, this is something that most of the people don't know. Only less than 7% of this big project of 452 miles long, only less than 7% are concrete walls. All the other are wire fences, as you can see here on the diagram. If we're looking from the left side to the right, we can see that there is a simple fence with red signs on it. This fence is to delay the terrorists, to mark the line and to say to people, don't cross it, you are entering an army area. Then you can see a ditch or a cliff that no car can cross it, and then you can see the fence itself. The fence is built on a concrete belt that it's about 50 centimeters underground, and the fence itself is about 3 meters and 10 centimeters high. It's not electrified, but it's a very, very sophisticated fence because there are a lot of sensors on this fence that if you touch it, if you cut it, if you climb on it, and in some areas, if you're coming even with some metal near it, it gives a precise indication where and what's going on there. At the moment that we get this indication, the cameras that we have all over the area are moving. So we can see, is it a child that runs after his ball, or it's a terrorist that wants to cross the fence? At the moment that we get this indication, 3 patrols are running. 1 patrol is running down there near the fence, but the other 2 patrols are running to the closest Israeli neighborhood or village or town that we can close the way of the terrorist and catch him in his way. Then you can see on the ground between the fence and the asphalt road, there is about 5 meters wide of a dirt path. We're cleaning this dirt path twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. So if someone steps on it, he leaves a footprint on the ground, and that's another sign for us. And then there is the patrolway. The order to the army and the border police is to be in 5 minutes to any call. I'm talking about 726 kilometers long, 451 miles long. and they have to be in 5 minutes to any call. So we need a lot of forces, but we need a very good pathway that they can run very quickly. And then there is another fence on the Israeli side, again with a lot of barbed wires and red signs toward the Israeli side. This fence is constructed there to delay the terrorists for some minutes more, and there will not come some innocent men from the Israeli side to that area. Between the barbed wires on the Palestinian side and the barbed wires on the Israeli side, we use another kind of rules of engagement. We are not shooting a man if he's inside, but everyone that is inside is suspicious, of course. At the first month, the Palestinians test us. They test us in daytime, in nighttime, in wind time, in fog time, in rain time, and the fence is very effective. So till 5 years ago, only 20 to 30 times a week, someone tried to cross the fence, and most of these people that tried to cross the fence were criminals or illegal workers or even Palestinian women that are running away from the families. But what happened in the last 5 years was that the army took some of the forces to other missions, so the Palestinians succeeded to make holes in the fence and cross to Israel. After the wave of terror in April 22, the government took decision to repair the fence, and now the fence is closed, and you cannot cross from the West Bank to Israel unless you cross a checkpoint in your way. But they said about 7% of this project are concrete walls. Why concrete walls? Well, I tried to construct wire fences all over the area, but when we came to urban areas, like between Jerusalem and Bethlehem, there is no space for building such system as I showed you before. And therefore, we took a measured decision not to destroy or evacuate even one Palestinian house by building the fence. And therefore, in places that I didn't have a space, I constructed concrete walls. So people says to me, okay, we don't like it, but we understand it. But why so high? Really, most of the walls are about 9 meters high. Why so high? Can you make it some shorter? Well, really, at first, I tried to construct only 6 meters high. But 6 meters, if you climb it, some people can jump. 9 meters, nobody jumps. So it takes you time to climb it. It takes you time to get down. We have a lot of cameras and sensors to the Palestinian side, so we can see if someone climbs the fence and just wait for him in the Israeli side. Well, as we constructed the fence, we have to construct checkpoints from all kinds that people can cross after security check from the Palestinian side to the Israeli side. And this system was very effective. We sell it to a lot of places around the world, and that was the main system in Israel. I cannot deny what happened in Gaza Strip. In Gaza Strip, we had a very problematic concept. We thought that the people in Gaza are people like us, and therefore the slogan was, quiet will be answered with quiet, prosperity will bring peace, and we thought that if we'll make the life in Gaza better, the people in Gaza will prefer to have better life in their own side and don't try to hit Israel. So we constructed a fence around Gaza. It wasn't the same system. It was a very sophisticated fence with a lot of barrier around it. And we thought that this fence can stop the terrorists coming from Gaza to Israel. But as you know, Gaza Strip is a sandy area, so the Palestinians dig tunnels under the fence. In 2014, we had a big operation in Gaza, and we closed all these tunnels, and we constructed a new wall. The wall was an underground wall that came inside the ground for about 20 meters and closed all these tunnels. And we thought that we can live with Gaza. That was till October 7, 2023. In October 2003, in one day, everything have been changed. Uh, 1 minute. Next one. Okay. So the fans didn't stop the Hamas. Why? Because the fence was built against terrorists, against group of terrorists, 1, 2, 5 terrorists, not against army of terrorists, not against 4,500 terrorists that came in 1 hour launching missiles toward Israel, and under the cover of these missiles, they succeeded to break the fence and cross to Israel. But it didn't. This is not a failure of the fence. The failure is the way that we thought. You thought, and we thought, that they are just normal people like us, looking face to face. And in one day, from a normal man, jumped out a wolf that tried to kill you. And we cannot think that this is the way that we can trade the other side. And therefore, the problem was not the infrastructure on the ground. The problem was how the army was not prepared for such terror attack. And that was the failure, not of the fence, the failure of the big concept in Gaza. We have a very big dilemma in Israel. On one hand, we want and we have to fight the Hamas, and we have all the time to continue with the operational, the army operation in Gaza. But on the other hand, we want to save the people that were kidnapped in Gaza. So some people says, stop the war. Yes, if we stop the war, Hamas will continue, Hamas will survive. And therefore, Israel all the time have to work on these two issues on one hand, on one time. First of all, to come with our army inside Gaza and to try as we can to push the Hamas back, to destroy the Hamas. But on the other hand, we're trying all the time to negotiate and to save the kidnapped people. It's not that if we'll stop the war, they will give us the kidnapped back. They are there because the Palestinians want to use them as a human shelter, and therefore we cannot stop the war now. I'll stop the presentation now and let some time for questions. I thought that I can go further to the other problems of Israel, the strategic problem, but maybe we'll do it in another day.
Dani, thank you so much. That was fantastic. I definitely learned a lot. Let's open up for Q&A. Yishai has a question, I believe.
No, I don't have a question. I'm just, still, it's not about defense, but, you still can't ignore the fact that the military did not have enough forces in place to deal with a different scenario, and then defense was supposed to take care of. It's not a replacement. It's an add-on that should be considered.
That's right.
And Rafi?
Yes, please. In the beginning of your very interesting speech, you talked about when you killed a few or you got rid of leaders, and there were definitely many others who came to take their place. Don't you agree that if you, say, eliminate all of Hamas or most of it, there will be enough people to replace them, and you really did nothing? The infrastructure, I think the infrastructure of Hamas is not in the Gaza Strip. It's in the, it is an extension of all those forces that support of it, Iran and Qatar and all of this. So just getting rid of Hamas, maybe it will hopefully will bring the kidnapped people back, but doesn't make any difference. This is a pointless war if we don't understand the roots of it.
Well, Rafi, thank you. As you know, the problem is the idea of the Hamas, and the problem is Iran that using the people in Gaza as part of their thinking about all the area, and they are fighting Israel only as the small Satan, and they see the big Satan in the United States, and we are just the first step. But we understand the organization and the abilities of the Hamas in Gaza. And what we are trying to do these days in Gaza is to destroy the forces of the organization and the forces of the Hamas. Last week, there was a pool in Gaza, and less than 50% in Gaza still believe that Hamas is the right way, or that Hamas will win this war. In the West Bank, it's more than 70% of the people that believes in Hamas, unfortunately. But in Gaza, people see what Hamas is bringing to the people on the ground. They feel it, and we are not doing it as a revenge. We're trying to do it in a way that we can open a new horizon for the people in Gaza. And the word that is missing these days in Gaza is hope. If we can bring new hope to Gaza, not only by Israel, then Israel and our allies in the United States, in Europe, and in the modern Arab countries, we can bring new hope to the people in Gaza. Probably they will not support Hamas. They will try to find something new for the children, for the future.
That's very optimistic, but you understand, as somebody who was brought up on hate propaganda from kindergarten is not going to start liking Israel, even if he has some hope. because this is a religious goal. The infrastructure has to be, the first thing Saudi Arabia did when they decided that they do want to negotiate with Israel is they changed the education program in school. Suddenly, Israel has the right to exist in their school. If this is not happening, if this propaganda from Israel, from all over the world, and Israel has neglected it for years, it's not only the last government's fault, but for many, many years, it was neglected. If you don't go there, then all the rest is this is not the shape of hope. Shape of hope is if we kill all Israelis because this is the only way out.
Okay, the word is de-radicalization, and that's what Morocco succeeded to do, the UAI succeeded to do, and we understand that some Arab countries succeeded. So we want their help to do the same thing in Gaza and hopefully in the West Bank as well.
That's right.
The money. You need to follow the money, where the money comes from. If you stop the money, the organization stops to exist. And if you are now giving them money to rebuild, and 50% of this money goes to the רווח קבלני, איך אומרים? Construction margin goes to the operator, and if the operator is Hamas, he will get so much money for the rebuild that he will be able to survive 10 times as the October 7th. So the
You're right.
how you
And
stop the
therefore,
money?
you're right. And therefore, we are trying to find a new way how to build again Gaza, not at the same that it was. And that will be with the help of Arab countries, Egypt as well. They want to come, they want to build, and the money won't go to organizations. It will go to projects. We learned it here in the West Bank for a long time, that if you're giving the money to the regime, it doesn't come to the end point, to the constructor on the ground. And therefore, because of the corruption, we have to give money to projects and not to regimes.
So the way to destroy Hamas is not by physically going around and shooting them, is by bringing in friendly forces like Egypt and other countries, and making sure that their constructions goes on in the way you just described, which I totally agree. And the going on with the war the way we are doing now is useless.
Rafi, no one will come to Gaza till the Hamas will destroy, because people are afraid from the Hamas, and no one want to be killed from the Hamas. Even Palestinians that have construction companies, they won't survive there if they will do anything against the Hamas.
Well, I certainly hope you're not right, but definitely you know better than me.
Thank you. Other questions?
What I just come back to the issue of education that was suggested before, and it's a question, quite wide question about this. It takes about a generation to change a generation ideas. How do we think to overcome this?
Of course, it will take a time, but we have to start with something. The situation is so bad that if we'll give hope, and that hope will be built up in a way that people can choose between the system that they already have or a new way. And people will understand what the Hamas brought them, and that there is a real alternative. that they can have a change. It's not easy. Today, the schools in Gaza were destroyed. We understand that part of the problem was UNRWA, and of course, we hope for other organization, other system of education. It's not something that you are doing from today to tomorrow, but we have to start with something.
What about another idea that 1,000 cities around the world will take each 100 people from Gaza for re-education for 45 years, and after they're re-educated, and they will finally pass the exam, that will be able to return and into a new Gaza. It will be the new Abu Dhabi or the new Colm.
Very good idea. Nobody wants to take the Palestinians from Gaza.
Because the only education
Even
was
not the Palestinian
terrorism.
majority in the West Bank, nobody wants them, and that's part of the problem. Of
But
course,
if you
Israel
get
cannot
them-
send them.
Just the idea that you gather people, that 100 people into a community of 100,000, that I mean, there's about 10,000 cities with the size of Tel Aviv around the world. So if you consider 100 people or 1,000 people that are coming there, attending each school, they will be able to go into the new the new attitude relatively easily, rather than if you bring a teacher into a community that the thought is so strong there about. I mean, terror education was the only education there for 75 years. So
That's
you need
right,
to invest in a brutal way, in a brutality way, not this way.
That's right, but the main problem is when you start talking like this, people says that you are talking about a transfer, taking people from their own land.
Suggest better. I agree that it's a kind of transfer, but they suggest a better way for the people, not for the Jewish people, but for themselves.
Yeah.
You suggest no better way, because if you do not change the education to a peace education, and it will not happen in the same environment.
Yeah, someone must.
That's being realistic. I mean,
not Israel.
I'm a pacifist, but being realistic, I don't like killing people, and the war will repeat. I mean, there is no way we'll change this in this way. 75 years will not change quickly, but if we find them a place, it could be like next week. They have a good life next week. What's wrong?
Well, I have to remind you that the whole story of the Palestinians started from the refugee treaty after World War II. They made the Palestinian people exempt for it, which means because the Arab countries, which had the majority in the United Nations, they passed a regulation according to the refugee treaty after the World War II. Nobody can stay a refugee more than one generation. But they made the Palestinian example because from day one, they never wanted the Palestinians to be amongst them. So I don't think there is any way they are going to change their minds in this matter now.
That's the best weapon, that's for sure. But it's a question because now the strong financial countries can have an influence on those Arab, on Jordan and Lebanon, and to change this and to give them the rights. I mean, the Jews were very happy in the 1947 resolution of the United Nations about getting about 1/3 of what Israel is today. We were happy. And we were celebrating this day. And the other side said it's not good enough. We will win. And every time they think that they are going to win, they are going to lose. And they lose again and again. And they never understand that what's going on. So the question is, I mean, we cannot do it alone. We need the world to take part in this conversation, and to put some
well, you need a perspective. you need a perspective of history.
Yeah.
Anti-Semitism from day one, which means from the Catholic Church, and until today, was always invented and promoted by people who didn't really care much about being pro-Jews or against Jews. They were doing it for their own interest. The
Yeah.
people who are driving the Hamas, Iran, why does Iran care about Israel in the first place? They care about it because it gives them justification to raise an army and recruit people who hate Israel. So now Israel is saying, so Israel never threatened Iran. I don't have to tell you that. And this is going on. If you don't understand what the roots of it, and you don't eliminate the infrastructure, and the infrastructure is joining forces with Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Sunni Arab nations, and recruiting the Western world who are now finally rising to the issue of the Iranian nuclear bomb. And you are not going to start with a massive propaganda campaign that will expose all the lies and the manipulation that is done all over the world for more than 30 years. If you don't do all that, then again, the war against Hamas is best described as a patch on a wound.
It's just a chapter. It's a one chapter in a book.
Exactly. So that's
You
where
have to
we
cross
should put
this
our
chapter
effort.
if you want to go on. You're right.
Thank you.
We have a
Okay.
comment from Hillel. Jordan threw out the Palestinians. Who do you think wants them?
The main problem in Jordan, is that the majority of the people in Jordan are Palestinians. And really, that's the main problem of Jordan. I see that Ishai put a hand. Ishai?
כן. לא, זה בטעות נראה לי.
אוקיי.
אפשר לקחת דוגמה מישראל. Israel is the best Arab country in the Middle East. The Arabs feeling here the best humanitarian solution. We live together, we do everything together, and everybody can see that if we just follow the Israeli way, this Middle East will be best place to live in. If we channel or move the money in the right way to support the good, then the good will grow.
Yes.
No, we don't have to shoot anybody.
But the main problem is not money and it's not prosperity. The main thing is honor and how people feel if they are under someone that is not a Muslim, under the regime of someone that is not a Muslim. It's something that you cannot buy in money. And people, although they have very good conditions in Israel, they don't feel that Israel is their country. And this is the main problem that we have with the Israeli Arabs.
Maybe.
Okay.
It takes another generation. We got Barack Obama, the president of the United States. Remember where they started 200 years ago. So maybe just another 2 generations of good life. It will be all different way. We will be able to drive to Iran by car and enjoy the way. Falafel in Damascus, and yeah. Good
I love your ideology. I love it. I'm with you.
Look, I know
Okay.
France and Germany. I drove from Germany to France a few months ago. I didn't notice where the border is. And I know how many millions of people have died just a few years ago in these bloody wars. I mean, it's possible. I mean, you could not speak English in France, they will be killing you. Now you can speak English in France. And okay, they
Okay.
Something stopped.
Yeah, I think we lost the
Okay.
connection.
We lost him.
Yeah.
Just
Well-
as he was going to the peak.
Danny, out of respect for your time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you
And-
for your opinion. But I
Absolutely.
still think that the day after the war is what should be considered right now in order to end the war. And you understand I'm not the only one that says that.
Rafi, this is something that I'm dealing with in the army. Okay,
Okay.
I'm sitting in the center of the strategic planning in the headquarters of the army, and we're trying to suggest the politicians with some very good ideas, but you know, the main problem is not what we suggest; it's what the government is doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Well, on that note, on behalf of Paul Mirage and the Mirage Institute, Danny, thank you so much for taking the time to enlighten our Mirage tribe. Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you all next week. Thank you.
Thank you.